If you would like a profitable online business, you need only 4 types of content. In today's video, I'm going to show you the 4 types of content so you can create it for yourself and just repeat it over and over again. And I'm going to show you these 4 types of content based on the Gospels. Then I'm going to show you at the end of today's video how to get more secrets like this from the Bible as well. And speaking about Gospels, have you ever thought about why there are only 4 Gospels? That is a clue that God gives us in the Word, which helps us in many different aspects in life. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about, obviously, business. And I remember the first time I heard about this framework of the 4 Gospels and why there's 4 Gospels and what each Gospel specifically is teaching. I learned this first and foremost from the late, great Dr. Chuck Missler. Now, obviously, he didn't go into the depths of business that I'm going to be talking about today, but ultimately, you can see how powerful this is actually going to be. So, each Gospel gives us a powerful representation of Jesus. 4 is a powerful number when you go throughout the Bible. When you think about even just life in general, there's 4 Gospels. There's 4 points on a compass: north, south, east, and west. There's 4 seasons: summer, winter, spring, autumn. And that's why I wasn't even surprised when I discovered that you only need 4 types of content that you need to create in your online business to have digital product sales rolling in every single day. We're going to start with the Gospel of Matthew. And this will all make sense. It will begin to make even more sense as time goes on. And Matthew is a great gospel in so many respects. Matthew was a tax collector. And that's why it shouldn't surprise you that Matthew's gospel focuses specifically on what Jesus said. If you have, for example, like a red letter Bible, which is very popular these days, you'll see so many red letters in Matthew's gospel. That's by design. As a tax collector, as a former tax collector, he would have to know shorthand. He's obviously writing down a lot of receipts. He's writing down a lot of numbers, etc. And that's why Matthew, in his gospel, focuses on what Jesus said. This is why Matthew continues to say throughout the gospel, this was done to fulfill this prophecy. This was done to fulfill this prophecy. He's presenting Jesus as the King of the Jews, the one who was coming, who's spoken about in the Old Testament, and he's coming to fulfill all of the Old Testament. And when you think about Jesus being the King of the Jews, it's all about his mission. So Matthew focuses on what Jesus said. So much so, in fact, that Matthew's gospel account, if you look at Matthew's gospel account, which has 28 chapters, and Mark's gospel account, which has 16 chapters, Matthew's gospel account is actually shorter than Mark's gospel account. The only reason why Matthew's gospel account is longer is because Matthew, being a former tax collector, someone who knew how to write shorthand, documented many of the things that Jesus said. That's why many of the things Jesus said are in long volume. Like, it's a lot of what Jesus said is in Matthew's gospel account. There's different examples in the Bible where God's throne is presented. And around the throne, you shouldn't be surprised to know that there were these like living creatures, these special beings basically who worship God and they serve God, etc. And each one, north, south, east, and west, had a particular face. So specifically, for example, the face which corresponds to Matthew's gospel account, let me just draw to help you understand this. We're going to draw some sharp teeth here. It was a lion. The face on that side of God's throne was a lion. And this is to, again, present Jesus as the King of the Jews, who's what? The Lion of the tribe of Judah. Jesus is presented as the Lion of the tribe of Judah. He's the Messiah, the coming King, who's coming to fulfill the prophecies. And we're going to tie all of this in, remember, to a digital business, the 4 types of content. So Matthew is, in his gospel account, focusing on what Jesus said. He presents Jesus as the King of the Jews. He also corresponds to the face of the special living creature on the east side of God's throne. And that lines up with the lion, the face of the lion, which you see from that side on the east, which was the Lion of the tribe of Judah. Another thing which this links into, right? In the Old Testament, in the book of Numbers, God told the people to dwell, to stay in particular locations. It shouldn't surprise you that just like this special angel whose face was like a lion on this side, the tribe of Judah was one of the tribes which camped on the east, right, of the tabernacle basically. And on the east side, you had the tribe of Judah, you had other tribes, but Judah was the head tribe, and their sign, their symbol was also a lion. So on the east side. Now let's go deeper. When you tie all of this stuff in together, what this basically shows us is that Matthew's gospel account is all about the mission of the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the King of the Jews, coming to complete the mission which he has been prophesied to do. It's all about the mission. This is, and when you think about this is the type of content you need to think about making is what I call visionary content, right? This is the vision. You could do this once a week, you can do this once a month, but make sure you have visionary content which really forecasts and showcases to the people that are watching your content where you are headed. So when you think about this sort of content, for example, right, it gives people insights about what it is that you're trying to do. And it gives people a clear vision, a clear pathway, showcasing, look, this is what you can follow the vision. This is the vision. So you're specifically talking in this content about where you are headed, where you are going, because as people look at the vision that you're speaking about in that type of content, they will look at this and say, okay, cool. I like where Israel's going, for example. I like where Joseph or Mary is going, and that is something that I can do. I want to go that way. I will follow. Let's now move to Mark's gospel account. We're going to go to the complete other side now. And this is also a powerful example. Now, Mark is speaking to a Roman audience. If you look into this, right, tradition says that Mark was basically writing a gospel on behalf of Peter. Right, he was like Peter's assistant, but Mark focuses on what Jesus did. Right, he focuses on what Jesus did. When you look at Mark's gospel account, right, I mentioned previously, Mark's gospel account is actually bigger than Matthew's gospel account if you remove the words of Jesus, the red letters, right? But when you read through Mark's gospel's account, Mark is consistently focusing on Jesus doing stuff, and he did this, and he did this, and he did this, and he did this. It's a very fast-paced, like free-flowing gospel that you can read through rather quickly. Mark, when you read through his gospel, he's talking about the miracles that Jesus did. He did so many miracles in the gospel of Mark because it's all about what he did. It's all about the actions that he's taken. Where Matthew presents Jesus as the King of the Jews and is very much about fulfilling prophecy, Mark presents Jesus through his gospel as the coming servant. That's why if you think about Matthew's gospel takes you back to Abraham in regards to the family tree, whereas Mark doesn't give you a family tree because a servant, for example, their family tree isn't necessarily significant. That's the point that Mark is trying to present. So he presents Jesus as the servant. So many things which Jesus did is what is the focus of his gospel account. And again, you won't read these gospels the same after like seeing this. So just like for Matthew, on the east was a lion, for Mark and for the west side, the animal of reference was an ox. Now, all the way throughout the Bible, the ox was a symbol of what? Working, right? The ox was the animal, the oxen, a yoke of oxen would be the animal that's plowing the field, the animal that is in the field all day working, plowing the field, etc., doing work. It was a work-like animal. So it points to the servanthood of Christ. And again, this is powerful, and it helps us understand in many ways what God is ultimately doing with the four gospels and just the Bible in general, right? One dimension, Matthew's gospel account was about the King of the Jews. One gospel, right, Mark's gospel, is about the servant, and it's all about service. This is the west side, right? So again, the people who were camped on the west side in the book of Numbers, for example, their sign was the ox. And the type of content you need to make here is helpful content. The reason, just to kind of spell this out quite clearly before we move on to Luke's gospel account, that we want to create helpful content is because it helps people. Surprise, surprise, right? There's nothing flashy about this. It's just visionary content shows people where you're going and it gives them the opportunity to follow. Helpful content helps them. It helps your audience. Firstly, number one, get results. This content is helping you. This obviously helps people dig your vision and see that, okay, cool, I may not be able to get to where this vision is right now, but because this content is helping me, this is content which I know are like breadcrumbs, are steps that can take me to that journey. Now, again, you could do this once a week. You could do this at whatever cadence you desire, but this is typically going to be the content you produce most often because people need a lot of help. So it makes sense for you to help them as much as possible. Now, let's move down south and look at Luke's gospel account. So Matthew focused on Jesus and what Jesus said, focused on him as the king of the Jews, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, which links up with the East, which is all about mission and vision. Mark on the West focused on what Jesus did and presented him as the servant, right? Very ox-like. He does the work. And this is why there's so many miracles that Jesus did in Mark's gospel account, right? It was all about service. This is the helpful content which you want to produce. And this is the typical content you produce most of the time. Now we move to Luke. Luke was a Gentile. He's writing to Gentiles. These are people who didn't necessarily have the understanding that the people that were reading Matthew's gospel initially would have in regards to Old Testament passages. This is why Luke doesn't always quote directly passages. He's alluding to a lot of passages from the Old Testament, but he's not directly mentioning them specifically, right? And this all plays into the individuals that God has inspired to write the scripture, but also to the main audience that they were writing to predominantly at the time. Now, Luke, as a doctor, which isn't surprising, focuses on what Jesus felt, right? He focuses on Jesus's humanity. So when you look at Luke's gospel account, right, so much stuff in the gospel is geared towards and presenting Jesus as a man, the Son of Man. It speaks to Jesus's humanity. He's going around and you can relate to Jesus because he can feel what you're going through, right? It's not the king of the Jews like Matthew. It's not just a servant going around just doing stuff because he's powerful and he's here to work. No, Luke presents him as a man, as a human, the Son of Man who has come to help you. He can help you. He understands you because he's a human, just like you. He can feel the pain and struggle that you are going through. The book of Hebrews talks about that, right? So when you think about this, this is about being in the south position. This is content that you should make, which is relatable. It makes you relatable. It's speaking to your humanity. It's speaking to your weaknesses. This is what happens in every industry, in every environment, where I'm breaking this down with the Gospels because I do business based on the Bible, because clearly you can see the Bible is written in a way which can transform all areas of your life the more God unlocks for you, right? So down south is relatable content. Content that, again, you may not do this as much as you create helpful content, right? But this is content which also is helpful, pun intended, and will give results to the people you are trying to serve. Why? Because Jesus in Luke's gospel account is being presented as this human individual, the Son of Man. This is what he feels. And it isn't a surprise that it's written by a Gentile who's writing predominantly to Gentiles about how this gospel has worldwide application. This isn't just, as some people misread Matthew, that, oh, this is only for Jews. No, Luke clearly articulates this in a way which is, this is a gospel message which is for everybody who believes, everybody from any nation. So Luke focuses specifically on what Jesus is feeling from moment to moment. This is relatable content. The reason this is so significant is because people will look at you and the content you create. If you do this right, if your content has visionary content, and if you have helpful content, people will naturally elevate you and think, you know what, oh, so-and-so is so great, right? They'll put you on a pedestal. And one of the problems with putting people on a pedestal is, let's just speak from a business perspective, right? Is it creates this gap. Now, normally there is a gap, right? And normally the people you're helping want to close that gap, want to get to where you are. You should want people to be able to close that gap. That's what the content, the products and services you create do. But at the same time, it can create a lack of belief. I can't do what so-and-so does because they're so-and-so, right? Your relatable content helps humanize you and remind your audience that you are just like them, right? There's nothing different between you and them. You are just further along on the journey, and that will help them create the belief in order to take the steps forward powerfully. And this is why, as I was thinking about this the other day, this is why it makes so much sense that Luke's content is down south. Human-like content, that content which relates to feeling. I feel this way, I feel that way, because it takes you, it will elevate you, it will prepare you to move up. Just as the Bible says, he that humbles himself will be exalted. It prepares you to read the Gospel of John. Now, John, as we know, is a fisherman, and John focuses specifically on who Jesus was. Where Matthew focuses on what Jesus said and him being the coming king, where Mark focuses on what Jesus did as the servant, the ox, where Luke focuses on Jesus as the Son of Man, what Jesus felt, John focuses on who Jesus was. And his whole point in the gospel is to showcase to you that Jesus is divine. Jesus is God who has come into the creation in the flesh. Like you had the Son of Man, the human face, which is what you see down south in south of God's throne. When you go up north, right, in regards to where the people were camped, their symbol, and also on the north of the throne, was the face of an eagle. Now there's my eagle drawing. Don't laugh, right? I promise you, my drawings will get better over time. But think about it. Think about the contrast between north and south. A human is on the ground, right? Walking around. An eagle is doing what? Soaring in the air. And these are just subtle things which are powerful. And that's what John's gospel focuses on. Jesus, his power, his powerful stuff because of who he is. And this is, like I said already, this is Jesus being presented from the position of God. And where is God? God is up north. God is in the skies. He's the high and lofty one. Like I say this all the time, right? Your fingerprints, right? Your fingerprints are God's reminder to you, to remind you you're special, you're unique, you're one of a kind, and you're made in God's image and in his likeness. And this content you have to focus on here, this is results-based content. This is content where you're just in your element. This is where you are in flow. This is why I was talking about being made in God's image. Because when you just create the content that you are created to create, right, it changes the game. Video recently talking about, the video was basically how I called it something along the lines of powerful proof leads to even more powerful profit, right? And in that video, I'm talking about a powerful thing from just recent Bible study in regards to John chapter 12. And I'm talking about how Jesus demonstrated powerfully with proof, and that led to even more powerful profit. And it's the same thing that we can do in business, right? I'll link that down below if you want to watch it after this video. But you want results-based content to showcase to the people that are watching your content that you actually know what you're talking about. You actually get results. You actually get results that are desirable for the people that are watching you. Now, when you think about all of this stuff, this is something I was thinking about, I discovered the other day, which just kind of blew my mind, just on a different level, right? When you think about these 4 types of content, you've got your missionary content, right? Your visionary content. And where is that based? That's on the east. And when you think about, I was thinking about this the other day, where there's a sun, think about the sun. The sun, where does it rise? It rises in the east and sets in the west. And you think about it from that perspective, getting up in the morning. Your missionary content, your mission, your visionary content empowers you. This is what should get you up in the morning. This is what should invigorate you, motivate you to do what? To rise up in the morning like the sun does on the east. And what does it do? It pushes you and guides you to do what? Throughout the day, the sun rises in the east and it moves over to the west, where you can do work, where you can serve. You serve. Think about this. Let me say this again. The sun rises in the east. That's your mission, your visionary content that wakes you up. And it allows you to do what? The sun sets in the west. It allows you to work throughout the day where there's light. You work throughout the day. You are serving. You are helping. You are doing what God designed you to do. And this is so powerful, right? Think about the next step. The sun rises in the east, sets in the west, and you create your content being a human. You relate to the people that you are serving. You don't think that you're better than them. You humble yourself. What does the Bible say? Those that are humble will be exalted. What did Jesus say? He who among you should be the greatest, let him be the servant. And when you serve, you will be exalted. You will create results. These are the 4 types of content that will transform your life, and you can see it right in front of you. And now another thing, which is also significant. I spoke about the places in which the people in the book of Numbers were to camp around the tabernacle of God, where God said his presence was. When you look at the numbers and you think about how many people were in each of the tribes on the east and the west and the south and then the north, it looks like this. There are business secrets like this all the way around the Bible, which will make your business boom. And that's why I want you to watch this video right here next, because it will show you business secrets that will blow up your business in a good way based on the first pages in the Bible. Go win, and God bless winner.